Let me take you to the Russo Dam, Mr. Speaker. Let me take you to the Russo Dam. And I want the people of St. Lucia to listen carefully to this one, Mr. Speaker. To listen carefully. I happened to look at the Gazette last week, Monday. Issue 25, Monday, July 13, 2020, page 886. A notice from the National Utilities Regulatory Commission, NURC, to cap the cost of the desilting of the Russo Dam at $60 million EC dollars. $60 million, Mr. Speaker. And I ask, how can there be a notice in the Gazette saying that the dredging fee will continue and the project is now capped at $60 million? I knew that this project was only about, when we came to this house, about $43 million. But this is a government that works. This is a government that's efficient. This is a government that can do things properly. How does a project move from 43 million to 60 million?
Honorable Member.
So, I'm raising a concern on this motion that the borrowing is by a government that is known to mishandle projects, and 600 million can become 1 billion. And I want, Mr. Speaker, to give you the example to validate my concern on this resolution. So I am going to use the example of the Russo Dam and expose to the people of St. Lucia how this government has mismanaged the Russo Dam and how it's likely that this resolution, this borrowing, can lead to another fiasco, and 600 million can easily become 1 billion. I trust you will allow me
you've made the
to highlight the example. I want to give the examples.
You've made the point. To go into further details is beyond the resolution.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it relates to Caribbean Development Bank and borrowing and institutions, Mr. Speaker. So please allow me, Mr. Speaker, please allow me to, elucidate the point, Mr. Speaker, and to bring it to light, Mr. Speaker, to show you how a project where we borrow X amount can end up almost twice the cost. Can I just show the details to show how the borrowing can actually escalate? And I'm using the example of the Gazette, where the National Utilities Regulatory Commission issued a notice capping the project because the project was getting so out of hand. So, Mr. Speaker, in January 2016, the Labour Party was in government. And the Labour Party negotiated with the Caribbean Development Bank a loan for $14.7 million US for the Russo Dam project. That's the equivalent of 40 million EC. That's what the Labour Party negotiated with the Caribbean Development Bank. That project, of course, was proceeding. The government changed in June 2016. The member from Babuno came to this house and said they were breaking up the project. Whereas the Labour Party had it in one, they were going to do it properly, they were going to break it up, there would be the site preparation works and there would be the dredging. In this honorable house, we were told this. In March 2018, Mr. Speaker, a contract was signed with Mega Contracted for the site preparation works. Now remember, we had a debate in this house where I raised questions about the tendering process and how contaminated it was. But let's put that aside for today. I just want you to see how this project and how borrowing can cause serious problems for the taxpayers of St. Lucia. In March, and remember I told you, the Labour Party negotiated with the Caribbean Development Bank for $40 million, 39.954000. The contract with Mega was for 17.9 million EC dollars. 17.9. Note it, Mr. Speaker. 17.9 with Mega. That's in March, Mr. Speaker.
The point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member for Bavada.
Mr. Speaker, it's not customary I stand on a point of order, but I want the member to make sure that he has his figures correctly, Mr. Speaker. The contract for Mega was $20,576,272.
Can I? Wait. Mr. Speaker, maybe when I'm finished, the honorable member will appreciate the point I'm making. In March, that was what was signed with Mega. In April, by letter to CDB, an addendum to CDB, CDB was informed that the loan from CDB for the dredging was $10,167,000, and it had a sum for the sediment disposal area, which is a non-bank finance component, for only $5.981 million, which is $15.9 million. So in March, a contract is signed with Mega for $17.9 million, but in April, CDB is told that that works, the letter to CDB, is $15.9 million. But by January 28, 2019, Wasco gives an addendum to Mega, and the contract that he was given for $17.9 million increases to $19.98 million. 19.98. Okay, 20 million. Mr. Speaker. So, by header point, Mega is given a contract for 17.9. A few months later, the contract is amended and increases by $2 million. By $2 million. A few months later. So the contract is given to them for X amount, and a few months later, it increases by $2 million. But here it is, Mr. Speaker. Provision is made for Mega to pay civil works engineer $100,000 a month services. Project manager $125,000 a month services.
Honorable.
Geotechnical engineer $150,000 a month, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, I think the member is getting out of hand now. I must say. Or out of order, whatever you want to say. I must say. Mr. Speaker, in January 2018, Mega Contracting signed a contract with Wasco for $20,576,272. That's a contract that was signed with Wasco. Wasco has no authority as to how Mega pay his workers. So you cannot come here, Mr. Speaker.
What's the point of order, Mr. Speaker?
No, but you're making it look like the point of order is my responsibility.
Is my presentation, Mr. Speaker.
No,
Yes.
Wasco has no authority over how Mega pays contractors or his workers.
Honorable.
Right?
Honorable.
And just Speaker, I think the point about we're discussing the airport. I don't know why we're going.
Yes, yes. So that was my point when now.
Why are you responding?
Yeah.
But
Honorable.
Continue.
Yes, but then I think that the extra time or the leeway
Mr.
that
Speaker,
you
I
ask.
have 1 hour to make my presentation, Mr. Speaker.
Huh?
Yes, you have an hour to make your presentation. However, it doesn't mean you have 1 hour to go beyond the scope. You ask for leeway. You ask for leeway to link or to show how the borrowing on one project can escalate, and therefore you don't trust this government on this borrowing.
Which is what I am doing.
Yes, but I'm saying that you've made the point. Let's get back to the resolution now.
You know what is most comical about this intervention? The member from Babono is stopping to correct me, to tell me the real figure is actually a little higher than what I said, by about $300,000. I said 19.9 million based on the document I have. You're stopping me to tell me I'm wrong. It's actually 20-point-something million, making it worse.
All right, honorable members,
So,
let's
Mr.
continue.
Speaker, let me continue.
Yeah, get to
The
the...
contractor cannot do the works, although the project has moved by almost $5 million more already. Wasco then buys...
Honorable member, this is not a debate on the desilting of the Russo Dam.
Speaker,
The point you are making, and which you ask for leeway to do that, and I allow you to do it, is to show that the borrowing on the project can get out of hand to the point. And you were saying that you wanted to use the Wasco Dam project to highlight that point, that the current borrowing of $45 million may get out of hand. I'm saying to you now that you've made your point. And if anybody in here did not realize what you were saying, you've made your point. So I don't think we should continue the debate or you should continue a presentation on the line of the Russo Dam project.
Okay, 2 more points and I'll end it, Mr. Speaker, just to reinforce the point I was making. Same, the contractor cannot finish the works. Just like, Mr. Speaker, for the borrowing for those projects, Mr. Speaker, the contractor may not even be able to keep it within the budgeted amount. So Wasco buys a piece of equipment for the contractor that costs over $600,000 to be able to demoisturize the soil. It is never used because it was faulty. Who is responsible for buying that piece of equipment for $600,000 or $1,000? That's why we need to be careful, Mr. Speaker, when we borrow money for projects when we don't know what the final cost is and there is no tendering. These are the things that can happen. So, Mr. Speaker, a project, the Russo Dam, that started off at $39.9 million is now capped at $60 million. $21 million more. And it is rising because the dredging company has been waiting for months at the dam to start dredging. Every day there is a cost on the government of St. Lucia. Every day, Mr. Speaker. So when you come to the House and say to us how efficient your government is, how effective your government is, I have little confidence, Mr. Speaker. I cannot accept that we have to approve borrowing, Mr. Speaker, of another $45 million. We do not have a master plan. We do not know what the final cost, Mr. Speaker. There are questions about the tendering for the services at the airport, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, how do you expect us to come in here, Mr. Speaker, and agree and support, Mr. Speaker, the borrowing of $45 million, Mr. Speaker?